In June of 1972, a woman appeared in Cedars-Sinai Hospital in nothing but a white, blood-covered gown. Now this, in itself, should not be too surprising, as people often have accidents nearby and come to the nearest hospital for medical attention. But there were two things that caused people who saw her to vomit and flee in terror. The first being that she wasn't exactly human. She resembled something close to a mannequin, but had the dexterity and fluidity of a normal human being. Her face was as flawless as a mannequin's, devoid of eyebrows and smeared in makeup. There was a kitten clamped in her jaw so unnaturally tight that no teeth could be seen, and the blood was still squirting out over her gown and onto the floor. She then pulled it out of her mouth, tossed it aside, and collapsed. From the moment she stepped through the entrance, to when she was taken to the hospital room and cleaned up before being prepped for sedation, she was completely calm, expressionless, and motionless. The doctors thought it best to restrain her until the authorities could arrive, and she did not protest. They were unable to get any kind of response from her, and most of the staff members felt too uncomfortable to look directly at her for more than a few seconds. But the second the staff tried to sedate her, she fought back with extreme force. Two members of the staff had to hold her down as her body rose up on the bed with that same blank expression. She turned her emotionless eyes toward the male doctor and did something unusual. She smiled. As she did, the female doctor screamed and let go out of shock. In the woman's mouth were not human teeth, but long, sharp spikes. Too long for a mouth to fully close without causing any damage. The male doctor stared back at her for a moment before asking, "What in the hell are you?" She cracked her neck down to her shoulder to observe him, still smiling. There was a long pause. The security had been alerted and could be heard coming down the hallway. As he heard them approach, she darted forward, sinking her teeth into the front of his throat, ripping out his jugular and letting him fall to the floor, gasping for air as he choked on his own blood. She stood up and leaned over him, her face coming dangerously close to his, as the life faded from his eyes. She leaned closer and whispered in his ear, "I am God." The doctor's eyes filled with fear as he watched her calmly walk away to greet the security men. His last ever sight would be watching her feast on them, one by one. The female doctor who had survived this incident named her the Expressionless. There was never a sighting of her again. Wow, what a story. This creepypasta was written by Ivysir on the Creepypasta Land fandom wiki page. And not too bad for a first story, huh? Many of you may have heard me say this previously in my streams, but I hate mannequins. I hate dolls. I've had a bad experience with dolls and mannequins and whatnot when I was a kid. And so this story really, really resonated with me. And it's the reason why I picked it as one of my first stories to read back. I remember listening to this creepypasta back when I was in high school, maybe early university days. And this one really, really stuck with me. Especially with the creepypasta channels that I used to watch. They didn't have any of the visualizations, it was mostly just narration. And so I had to imagine what she would look like. So to my surprise, she looked a lot less scary on the actual wiki page. They do have a picture of her. I don't recommend if you're uncomfortable around mannequins to go look it up. But in my head, she was a lot scarier. Now, could this story be true? Well, besides it being a creepypasta, let's just brush that aside. I think in a fantasy world where these were actual horror stories and not, obviously fake creepypastas, this will be a very, very unnerving experience. Maybe even a case of schizophrenia, perhaps some sort of hypnotism. I mean, we've seen some pretty crazy happenings in the world and some creepy things that, meth is a hell of a drug, you know. There were cases of people eating other people's faces off on crocodile in Florida. I mean, it's not too far-fetched to attribute something like this to that. But I'm sure that, you know, if this were real, she would have been caught immediately after, or if not too long after. So there's also that. Out of 10, I'd probably rate this story, in my own opinion, probably an 8 or a 7. Mainly because, to me personally, I hate dolls and mannequins, and this story really resonates with me. I do remember having nightmares about this when I was a lot younger. Obviously not now because I'm just way too jaded. But yeah, what a great story. And a great start to the series. Anyways guys, if you like this sort of format, do let me know. I'll see if I can record a lot more stories, and we'll see where the series takes us. I have no idea what I'm going to read next, but that's why it's exciting. I hope to capture more of the creepypastas that I used to listen to and just forgotten about. I'm doing a little bit of research now to try and remember the titles, but there were a bunch of stories that I really, really liked back in the day, and I hope to archive them on my channel as well. Anyways, have a lovely day, night, evening, wherever you're from, and as always, keep killing it. See you later. Bye.